Hope everybody is well, and thank you for joining us today for this workshop about networking. At the beginning of the workshop, I'll just give a little bit of background about the project, as we've done in other workshops as well, just for people who perhaps haven't been to a webinar before. We'll just give a bit of background and then move into the discussion about networking and why networking is important. So I'm just going to check, can everyone see my screen?
Yeah, everything's good, Helen.
Perfect. So within the project, that's a collaborative project funded by the British Council in collaboration between HUTECH, Thap Community College and Dongay University with the University of Hertfordshire. We are working to address women's underrepresentation in leadership. And we've really thought about how we can understand the context in Southeast Asia and in Vietnam particularly, but to really understand about some of the issues for women in the UK and in Vietnam, and to think about how we can support and develop female leadership within academia. So through the project, we developed a massive open online course, or the MOOC, the leadership MOOC. We're hoping that we'll have about 1,000 participants will enrol within the MOOC, and I'm hoping that perhaps Angie will be able to put the link to the MOOC in the chat. So if you haven't already enrolled, please do, because I think you'll find the materials and the resources really useful. There are sessions and recordings from experts in Vietnam, and then as well, we've produced materials from here at the University of Hertfordshire and included guest speakers from within and beyond our university. We've also then conducted face-to-face workshops in Vietnam. So Sarah and I were lucky enough to come and visit, and we did workshops at each of the institutions, and it's lovely to see some of you who attended those in person online with us today. We're also keen to establish a female scientist network, and the next two sessions within this online workshop sessions coming up will focus on sort of the research activities, particularly in terms of a science network. Excuse me a moment. We're also hoping to reach lots of people through our media and outreach campaign, again, recognising the British Council's funding within this and linking with various social media activities, including using our LinkedIn platform. So hopefully within the project, we will encourage at least 1,000 people to complete the MOOC. We hope that will be really helpful for individuals. We hope to establish and operate some support networks and linking colleagues in Vietnam with colleagues in the UK, and also to increase awareness through workshops and media campaigns. We are also hoping to collect some baseline data, particularly for people who've attended the online workshops as well as the face-to-face workshops, and follow their activities through perhaps over the next 12 months to see if perhaps they've applied for a leadership role or felt empowered to engage in a network, and how that the materials associated with female leadership have helped them in their career progression. So those are the longer term outcomes we're hoping for. So we're hoping to see an increase in applications for leadership positions from women, particularly in Vietnam. We hope to see increased female representation in leadership and academia. And we hope that we'll be able to expand and scale up some of these initiatives. And we hope that colleagues beyond Vietnam might also engage with the MOOC. I think it's been really important for us about that sharing knowledge and understanding, and that shared research and knowledge dissemination, and particularly the institutional and cultural exchanges that we've made. So as you can see, we've got a timeline of activities. The MOOC was launched in July, so please do enroll on the MOOC and engage in the different sessions within it. There are lots and lots of resources and sections that will guide you through and activities to help you consider your own leadership. And I would say, although it's focused on female leadership, the MOOC is not just for women. There is lots in there for male participants as well, really focusing on thinking about your leadership skills and your leadership development. We've had monthly online workshops associated with gender equality and leadership. We started back in April with female leadership in that kind of more general sense. We've also had the language of leadership. Then we had the in-country workshops and discussions of mentoring. This is our developing your professional network workshop. And then the next, like I said, the next couple are really focusing on research. So confidence in writing research papers and developing research bids. Then we'll look at leadership in action in December, career development in February, and then bringing us to our very last one in March 2026, evaluating your learning and what next steps you might want to take. Remember as well that all of the materials are available on the HUTECH website. So HUTECH are very kindly promoting all of the events. So all of the workshops and the links to the online workshops are on the HUTECH website, as well as the link to the MOOC. Okay, so before I go any further, let's do some proper introductions. I've already waffled on and not really introduced myself. I'm Helen Barefoot from the University of Hertfordshire. I'm Director for Education within our Centre for Education and Student Success. Sarah.
Hello, everybody. My name's Sarah Flynn. I'm Deputy Director for Education in the same Centre for Education and Student Success as Helen. And we're joined also by our colleague, Kim. Kim, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, my name is Kim Tran. I'm a senior lecturer in social work. I'm also program lead for MSc Advanced Social Work Practice.
Kim very kindly has also got a colleague and friend joining at just after about 9:15. Yen, do you want to say a moment about Yen, and then we'll introduce him properly when he arrives?
Yeah, so we has pleasure today, to introduce Ian Tran, Associate Professor, from the UK, and she will join us later at 9:15 to talk about Vietnamese intellectual society and also her experience, in the UK.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Kim. So let's really focus in this session on networking. And our first question is about why is networking important? Now, we're using Mentimeter. This is an interactive tool. We want this to be an interactive workshop. It's not just going to be us delivering. So please, if you can you scan the QR code that's on the screen? If the QR code isn't working, or you're on a laptop would rather use a different mechanism, you can just go to the website www.mentimeter.com. and it'll ask you for a code, and that code is 58132775. I can see some thumbs up, so some people are joining, which is great. So just wait a moment or two more as people join the Mentimeter. And the Mentimeter is something we use a lot within UK higher education, particularly when we're doing large class teaching with our students. It's a really good way for students to engage with the material, for us to ask some questions, for us to check student understanding, and also for them to be actively engaged in their learning. I've just seen there's something in the chat. Oh, it's a message from Sarah as well, which is great. She's put the link in the chat as well if people want to access it from there. So I think we've got quite a few people that have joined. So this is my first question to you. Please do, if you can answer in English, that's great. But if not, please do answer in Vietnamese, and Kim will very kindly do a little bit of live translation for us. So what is networking? How would you like to define networking? What is networking? You'd like to put your thoughts into Mentimeter, and then we'll see your responses come up on the screen. See some really good responses coming in. A moment or two more as people might still be typing. So we can see that we've got about expanding professional relationships, absolutely right. Sharing professional interests, definitely. Building and maintaining relationships, and I think that is important, that notion of relationships and maintaining them. Different stages of our careers, we might have different connections with different people, but maintaining connections through our career is really, really important, and coming back to some of the people we've worked to previously can be really, really useful. Networking is communicating with other people to reach your goals. It's really important as well. How can it be beneficial to us individually as well as beneficial to others? There are absolutely important elements within that in terms of networking. And connecting with friends, colleagues for future activities, social work and personal. I think it is really important to think about those social aspects and that personal growth as well. We often think about particularly networking as a term for work, networking, but actually there are elements of social within it, and it's absolutely really important for our personal growth as well. Building opportunities for collaboration, definitely. Lots of things will come out of networking, opportunities, ideas, projects that perhaps we hadn't thought about before. So those opportunities for collaboration can be really, really beneficial. Sharing knowledge, definitely. And networking is when people form relationships with other people around them for the sake of their professional, personal stuff. Absolutely right. And again, that relationship element within networking is crucial within it. In the business world, networking is a key drive of success. And yes, some of the literature will absolutely support that argument. People, if you're asking them how they progress to where they are in high levels within their career, they will often talk about the networks they formed, the mentorship relationships, the connections they formed as all being crucial to that element of success. So let's have a look at how we might define it. If we look at the Collins Dictionary, they would talk about network being the process of trying to meet new people who might be useful to you in your job, often through social activities. So it has that sort of social element, but also really a focus on that career and developing the network for the benefit of your work. Also, we might think about that importantly in that translation as the importance of building relationships. So it is about exchanging information, developing professional or social contacts. And what you're trying to do is build that network for mutual help and support. And that's not just help for you, that is for you helping others as well. And I think many of us would say that being part of a network is very rewarding because we support and guide others through that network. The French sociologist Pierre Bourdieu discussed the concepts of social capital. And this sort of social capital, how do we know and how do we progress without seeing those written rules? That's that sort of social capital, knowing how to navigate and move through situations without having the explicit information in front of us. That's that sort of notion of social capital. He emphasizes the resources individuals gained through their social connections and networks. And he defines social capital as the aggregate of actual or potential resources that come from having a network of relationships that provide mutual recognition and acquaintance. So that social capital and understanding of these environments and navigating through workspaces is really important, and you need those connections and relationships in order to help you to do that. If we think about what's needed to develop networks, we might think about things such as trust and that mutual trust between people. We've mentioned about sharing information and knowledge exchange. We also think about reciprocity. So where we talk about reciprocity, we mean that giving and taking. It's not me getting all of the useful information from others just for my career. That is about me also supporting others through the network. So it's a reciprocal and collaborative arrangement. If we think about networking within the career context, we talk about using the resources or using the support of a network to gain industry insights. I think that's really important, getting information from other universities or other organizations that help us understand our organization. So those industry insights. To access job opportunities, we might hear about job opportunities or vacancies through a network that we wouldn't have heard about otherwise. And importantly, particularly to build mentorship relationships, which will support career development. So there might be someone in a network that you connect with, and then they become your mentor or your coach. Or similarly, you might become the mentor or coach for somebody else through the network. So let's think about, why is networking important? We've sort of said what it is, and we've mentioned some of those things, but let's focus a little bit more. So again, within the Mentimeter, why do you think networking is important? Perhaps even thinking why it's particularly important for women. So again, if you'd like to put some answers into the Mentimeter, that would be great. We've got one response. I think people are typing, so just wait a few moments more as others add answers. We can see there we've got about career growth and future collaboration. What's interesting in this verse as well, we mentioned about that personal branding. I think that is important. It's about, I mean, that notion of selling ourselves is a little bit different, but about how we communicate and how we want others to see us in this work environment. So that personal branding is important. And usefully as well, the next term, the first comment includes is visibility, to be visible to other people in other institutions and other communities. It absolutely helps connect us with other people. There might be colleagues, it might be partners, it might be funders, there might be research collaboration or opportunities within that as well, which is great. This is an interesting one, isn't it? Networking helps women gain access, recognition, advocacy, and support. I think that is important. I think if we think back, perhaps, 20, 30 years ago, 40 years ago, or even centuries ago, there were lots of opportunities for men to get together and discuss work. We in the UK have lots of clubs and societies, particularly in London, these fancy clubs that men pay a membership to, and it would enable them to meet with other people of a similar social standing, and they would discuss work, they would discuss business as well as socializing. but women were barred from those places. They weren't allowed to enter them. And even as those ways of working changed, you still saw things like the golf course, men playing golf together and doing business on the golf course, or going to the pub after work, a very English or UK typical ways of male working activities that spilled from the workplace into these golf courses or pubs or clubs. And the work continued afterwards, the networking, the business deals. And again, women were excluded from those environments. And actually, thankfully, things have changed, but those things still occur, and women can still feel shut out from some of those conversations. And so networking, whether in person as an organised event or online, is a really important way for women to be part of those conversations and to be part of those networks and modes of communication. So absolutely, networking does help women gain access to what was previously areas that they weren't invited to. I can see Sarah's come off mic. She wants to add something at this point.
Well, I was just reminded of conversations that we had when we were in Vietnam. Lots of people talking to us about the challenges of balancing home and work. And those are exactly the kinds of things that Helen was talking about, that we can make a commitment to being available in our work time and in our workspace. But if the real power and development and decision making goes on outside of those working hours, then whether people are explicitly excluded, like those membership clubs that Helen spoke about, or whether actually people weren't technically excluded, but just practically they couldn't get along to join in with those activities. I think that's something that I've been certainly thinking a lot more about since we came back from our trip to see you in country and some of those conversations that we've had. So I think it's really timely that we're having this conversation today as our first workshop following that visit.
Thanks, Sarah. Absolutely right. Also as well, in our next comment, we cannot do everything by our own and alone. We need to collaborate with others to get their pros and share our pros. I mean, to amplify the achievement. Absolutely. I think that's really important, is amplifying the achievement. Certainly, Sarah and I use LinkedIn a lot, and you see that when you post something on LinkedIn, it's then reposted, not retweeted, reposted, or people like it. It's amplifying and communicating the work, and that's really important. And also other people might comment, share thoughts, share ideas about your post.
Helen, I think that's really timely, because this week in the UK, we've many people have had their academic promotions confirmed. So there's been lots of people on LinkedIn talking about their promotions to associate professor and professor, and there's lots of comments underneath. And one of the things that I think is important in relation to what we were talking about on this slide are the number of people who post a comment underneath saying that the person who is celebrating their achievement, how inspirational that is to them in their own professional development. So whilst that sometimes that self-promotion can feel a little uncomfortable, what we need to remember is how it can really be a positive influence on the people who will read and see those comments. And there's been lots of those in the last sort of 2 weeks here in the UK that I know Helen and I have both seen, and that's been really, really positive to see the effect that it has on other people, not just the person who's amplifying their own achievement.
Yeah, that's absolutely right, isn't it? And sometimes it does feel a little bit awkward selling your achievement or promoting your achievement. But Sarah's absolutely right. It can be really, really inspiring to others. So it's really, really important. It is to maintain our social relations, absolutely right, and to keep us up to date with what's going on. I think it's a really useful point, isn't it? That currency, we can remain current through our networks, and particularly about understanding what's going on at other institutions, as well as what's happening within our own institution. So yes, if we look at some of the recent research as well, and Rifat Faizan in their recent paper in 2025 used a systematic analysis to consider case studies, industry reports and academic journals to identify the success of professional networking, specifically in relation to career success. and what elements do people say were important within that networking. They also suggest that those with stronger networks have more promotions. So the more connected you are, the more networked you are, the more likely you are to be promoted, and to know about new opportunities as they come up. So you might apply for more things and progress through your career. Also, as well, as you develop your network, hopefully people will speak favourably about you. So we'll talk about you when you're not there in a very positive way. That might be internally within your organisation, but also externally as well. Also, as you network more and you promote your achievements and you talk about what you've done, people understand your abilities, your expertise, your experience, as well as your ambitions. So they might then say, oh, I know that Kim's really interested in that. She's got great expertise in this. You might want to speak to her about this opportunity I know you've got in your company. So you're speaking on behalf of others because I understand now what their expertise is because they promoted that through the network. So we might think about networking being particularly important for career development and career opportunities. Oh, my light has just gone out in the room. Sort that out. And you may also gain guidance on navigating workplace dynamics and overcoming challenges. I think that is important. Sometimes we can experience difficulties within our job, and having someone within a network within another institution in a very similar role to ours can be a really useful sounding board and someone you can talk to. And I'm looking at Sarah because she's been doing exactly that recently with a colleague of ours at another institution. We might also think about that knowledge sharing. So sharing best practice, sharing industry insights, thinking about emerging trends that are coming up within different universities. These are often shared in a non-competitive way through our networks. And I think that's a really important collaborative nature of networking. We see it in all sectors, but I think it's really strong within higher education. Of course, we've mentioned about mentorship and guidance. Through networking, you might be able to identify a mentor or a coach to support you within your development. It might be somebody you identify, or within the network, you might ask, does anybody know somebody who'd be interested in coaching? I'm looking for a mentor, I'm looking for a coach. I'm particularly interested in this type of thing. And then someone within the network might be able to connect you with somebody relevant. And we've mentioned already about that personal branding. So sharing your expertise and your skills through the network. And this is particularly useful through the online platforms. We'll mention about LinkedIn later on, but also through events in face-to-face sessions, such as academic conferences and meetings, for example, and engaging externally helps you to build your credibility within your field. So sometimes it feels like, oh, we've got so much work to do within our institution. It's difficult to build those networks externally, but it is important to do that online or where you can face to face to connect with others, so people are alert to you and what you are doing. Of course, there are some time constraints associated with network, particularly finding the space and the time to do that. And again, if you're going to a physical event, there might be financial constraints involved. It does require patience and time to build the network and maintain your professional network. So I think that is important, that maintenance. People aren't just waiting for you to contact them. You have to build them, and then you have to keep regularly posting, for example, to LinkedIn, or keep regularly joining a online chat, or if you're in sometimes an email chain of a network, contributing to that email chain, because if you don't contribute, you do get lost within it. People will forget about you, which is defeating the object of the networking. Also, as well, I think it's really important to be authentic. We talked about this a lot within the face-to-face workshops, being about an authentic leader, but just being authentic in our practice, being authentic online so people know who you are. Networking isn't just about personal gain, it is about contributing to the network. So making sure you're supporting others as well as promoting your own activities. You don't want to just be selling yourself all the time, because that will lead to superficial interactions, and other people might deem it as you're just looking for something for yourself, not for contributing to the network. So you want it to be relational rather than transactional. You're looking at that two-way relationship. As well, we'll talk a little bit about that face-to-face networking. It can produce some social anxiety and it can be awkward feeling, oh, I've got to go up and speak to somebody. I think anybody feels a little bit challenged in that situation. It's always more comfortable to speak to somebody you know. So again, thinking about terms that we might have to help us start that. So let's go on to that next slide. How do we start networking? So again, using Mentimeter, thinking about how do we start networking. So when you've actively networked with others, or what did you find difficult about networking? So if you can ever think about that, when you've actively networked with others, what did you do? And what did you find difficult about networking? Again, let me go to our slide so you can add into this. So what did you do when you've networked with others? How did you start that? How did you initiate that networking?
We're running these slides ever so slightly differently to the other ones. So the responses on these slides are hidden. And we're doing that because we think these two questions might be a little bit more sensitive. They might be something that you want to think carefully about before you post, and not perhaps be so influenced by what other people are saying. So when you've made your response, don't be concerned if you can't immediately see it on the screen. When we've had a number of responses in, Helen will reveal them and we can look at them together. It's just a different way of doing some interaction, and it's a really useful way of doing some interaction when we're talking about things where we're asking people to be very honest and perhaps to be a little bit vulnerable in their answers. So it's a really useful tool that we have, a different way of using Mentimeter for that point of view.
Excellent. Let's wait a moment or two more as others might be responding. So what did you do when you've actively networked with others? How did you get started? Three response. So wait just another minute, see if anyone else is going to add a thought or a comment, and then we'll have a look at what people have said. Five responses there, which is great. Let's have a look. So people have networked at meeting and conferences, absolutely. Commenting on posts on professional media platforms, definitely. Industry events. Our last workshop, great. I'm really pleased that helped people network. Fantastic. Commenting on posts on professional media platforms, absolutely. Contacting for advice and information, absolutely. So reaching out, being proactive in that, excellent. Workshops online or on site, business trips, meeting, informal occasions such as break time, lunch, dinner, or coffee time. I think that is a really important point. Often we're working within perhaps a very small team or even individually, but actually that networking can be very localized as well. So how do we make sure we build our network with the people within our own institution? So at break times, at lunch times, at dinner or at coffee breaks as well. We were really touched, weren't we, Sarah, when we were in Vietnam, that everybody stopped and ate lunch together. We're not very good at doing that in the UK. People tend to often eat their lunch at their desk. rush on through. Actually, the importance of sitting together, eating lunch together, you end up talking about work as well as social activities and getting to know each other individually. So I think that aspect of informal networking over lunch, over break times is really, really important. Thank you for posting that. When I have opportunities to join a training course, conferences with others, I think that's really useful as well. Training course is a really good way to connect with people, particularly because you're all in the same boat. You've gone on the training course together. You're all ready to learn together. You're vulnerable in that sense anyway, because you're all ready to learn. You often then connect with others, and it's really good to take that opportunity to connect with others at a training event and then keep in touch after the training event to see how you've put your learning into practice. It gives you something very clear to talk about and something to structure your conversations on, which is really helpful in that beginning of networking. Conducting research is really important as well. And again, we often find that research conferences are a really useful way. Perhaps you've done a presentation about your work, perhaps you've shared your research. Other people will come and speak to you afterwards, or you would do the same. You've heard somebody's talk, you go and connect with them, ask them about their research. I am proactive to network when I'm in a situation of lacking of specific skills or resources, finding visiting lecturers for specific courses at summer events. I network for future. I think that's really useful as well. There might be very specific things that you need. There might be information, there might be learning, there might be people that you need to employ or you need to recruit. So actually going to specific events or activities and looking out and connecting with those people or those materials that you need or those to gain those specific skills. Excellent. So some really good thoughts there about how to begin networking. Let's move on to the next slide. What do people find difficult about networking? Again, within the Mentimeter, again, these are hidden, so I'll reveal them when we've got some answers. So what do people find difficult about networking?
I think while people are thinking, it's useful to share a story or two, isn't it, Helen? And I've got really strong memories of being at my first events where I didn't know people in a professional capacity and not really knowing what you should talk to people about, and really just who you could talk to and whether it was okay to go up and talk to anybody or just you had to wait for somebody to find you. It's really interesting, isn't it, how some of those things become really strong memories in your mind.
Well, they're associated with emotion, aren't they? They're associated with feeling nervous, with feeling anxious. So they become a stronger memory because they are linked with that emotion. And what Sarah and I were talking about this the other week is very interesting. Both of us have been to events separately, but we've been to events where our Vice Chancellor has also been at them. And the Vice Chancellor will often migrate to speak to me, or in the other case, to speak to Sarah, because he's not that confident in networking. So again, he finds somebody he knows, he speaks to them for most of the day. And I was thinking, oh, I need to go and speak to other people. But my Vice Chancellor felt a comfort in standing by me and talking with me. So everybody, at whatever level they're at, can find it quite difficult to initiate that conversation with strangers.
I also think it's not helpful that everybody knows someone who has the horror story about, certainly in the UK, often specific networking sessions at things like conferences are often at the end of the day. And in the UK, they would historically often involve a drinks reception. And everybody knows somebody who's, bumped into someone and spilled their drink over them, or trodden on someone's foot when they've got a nice fancy pair of shoes on and things like that. So I think it's often I always think the best thing is just to get on with it and make your own positive memories before you get too fixated on other people's challenging experiences when they've been networking as well. But yes, it's there's also been there are also some really useful things. I know certainly I've been at events before and just chatted to the person next to me, and sometimes I don't even know who they are. And then as they've walked away, somebody said, "Oh, don't you know who that is?" And I think, gosh, I'm really pleased I didn't know before I started, because that might have made me nervous, particularly if it's somebody quite senior.
Oh, Absolutely. I think that's right. It is usually easier just to speak to the person next to you, isn't it? And like you say, it's beneficial if you don't know who they are, so you're not intimidated or you're not worried about it. You just start the conversation. Okay, I can see I've got 3 responses. I'll wait another moment and see if we get any more. 4, 5, there we go. Right, people are entering in. So I think that lack of confidence can affect everybody. Lack of confidence of starting the conversation, lack of confidence of who are we speaking to? Will they be really senior to us and we're quite junior? Is that a worry? Again, I used to find it hard to approach strangers and start natural conversations. It is difficult. The one thing I will tell you, the more you do it, the easier it gets, just like practice. So although it's difficult, making that effort, pushing yourself to be, although it's uncomfortable, to do that is really beneficial. And again, how to start a conversation with a stranger, especially when you're an introvert or the people you want to talk to are a rock star. Yeah, higher status, professional status position. Absolutely. It is challenging, but we'll talk about some kind of STEM sentences that you might use that can help with that. Also, as well, I always think eye contact's really important, and a smile. If you smile, somebody often will smile back at you. It's a very natural, what we call a mirroring response. So if you smile, they will smile back, and that immediately makes it feel more comfortable and you can start that conversation. I think this is really interesting. Differences can be barriers. So if you feel like you are the other person in the room, if everybody else is of one social group or one financial status or one ethnic group different from you, who you are, that can be difficult. You can feel difference being a real barrier. But again, using those small steps, speaking to just the person next to you rather than seeing everybody as a group, can be helpful within that. That cultural gap at international events. We'll talk a little bit about cultural difference as we go through the workshop. My feeling of hesitate, finding inappropriate network, then keep for future. Background difference in communication, geographical difference, language and culture. Absolutely. I think all of those are completely valid concerns. I think what has helped is COVID and moving us all online. That has brought us more together through geographical distance, removing those barriers, but also as well, things like having the translate feature within this. If we're online, we can translate, we can post in our first language, people can translate our comments. So technology has been helping us break down some of those geographical and language barriers. I think Vietnamese culture women is afraid of making networking. I think in the UK that was the case as well for women years ago. I think it has got better. And I think, as we talked about before, thinking about what's going to help us individually and how we can do that and ways to do it is going to be useful. So I'm just trying to move the screen slightly on the Mentimeter. Step out and start the conversation, extend the conversation, keep the connection. I think that's a really important point, and sometimes difficult. You might make a really good connection on a day or at an event. How do you maintain that connection? How do you keep that relationship going? And we might think about how you do that online, or you might do an email reminder to yourself to connect with that person perhaps once a year, just to maintain that relationship, just to keep that communication. How to start the networking conversation and find common points to discuss to keep the network continuing. I think that's really useful as well. Great, some really useful and important points about those challenges. So there is some literature about addressing some of these issues and thinking about how we can start that networking and make it feel a little bit more comfortable. Marissa King at Yale University talks about the benefits of reconnecting with people you haven't been in touch with for a while. This might make networking a little bit easier. It might be somebody you did an undergraduate degree a long time ago, and they might have gone into a different career or a different university. So reconnecting with them, you already know them, you've got a comfort with them. it then is a little bit easier to reconnect with them than somebody you've never met before. So getting back in touch with people you haven't been in touch with for a while can be really helpful. And you're reaching back to them, you're saying, we used to know each other, it'd be really good to reconnect. And you've already got that mutual trust and that relationship. So you're re-establishing the relationship, and then you might be able to gain that creative advice or that sharing of knowledge, that reciprocal relationship. So I think that is a useful thing to think about. Are there people in your previous jobs or previous study that you can now reconnect with? We've talked about digital networking a little bit, but digital networking enables you to build connections around the world and exchange knowledge with groups who you don't have immediate connectivity with. There are often groups online as well, so you can join a group that you might have an interest in. You can be part of that conversation. So looking out for groups, particularly within LinkedIn, is really useful. And once you've joined that group, you're then connecting with other people of similar interests. And again, there'll be people at all sorts of different levels, very experienced, very junior within that group, who all have that interest, and you build that connection. If we think about networking being relational rather than transactional, you need to offer your skills, advice, and expertise, as well as thinking about what is going to be beneficial for you. So if you're offering your expertise, that enables the connections to form on a deeper level. So think about what you like to do and what others often ask of you. So for Sarah and I, people often ask us to help them with their associate professor application, for example. They often ask us for career advice. So we might post it on LinkedIn. We might say we've supported colleagues applying for associate professor, or we've supported colleagues going for, in the UK, we have the Principal Fellowship, the Higher Education Academy. People then who might be thinking about applying for that may contact us to ask their advice. So it might be that you're great at helping people summarize their research or communicate their research outcomes. So make sure you're communicating what you're good at. Or if, for example, you're a really good listener, sharing that within LinkedIn, then people think, okay, that person might be a really good coach for me, and you're building that connection. I think we talked about that sort of panic of making small talk or going up to somebody we don't know. It is nerve-wracking, it is difficult. How do you actually start that conversation? Well, of course, there's that introducing yourself, asking who they are, that's important. But most people actually prefer that conversation to be a little bit deeper rather than completely superficial. So there's an article by Christy Hunter Arscott. It's called A Better Approach to Networking. And she talks about the stems of sentences you can use to initiate that conversation. So instead of saying, what is your current role? You might say, what roles and positions have led you to where you are today? So that gives a bit more of a sentence for them to build on different things. They will talk about different aspects of their different career paths. You might say as well, which ones have taught you the most? So you're getting to a deeper conversation, and also you're gaining an understanding of the different expertise and skills that that person has. And again, she talks about, instead of asking, where are you from? You might ask, what places have you lived in and travelled to throughout your career or your studies? Again, then you can build on that conversation and you can learn about more of what they've done. Again, you might build on that conversation by saying, which ones have had the biggest impact on you? Which was your favourite place where you worked, and why was it your favourite? So again, you're becoming, the conversation immediately becomes deeper rather than a simple answer, where do you work now? And they just give you a one-line answer. Also as well, think about starting within your own organisation. So begin with connections that might be very local to you, or that your boss's colleagues might know. So can your boss connect you with somebody? So you're building lateral connections and working through other people within your institution. That might be easier than starting with people immediately external. All right, I'm going to pause there and hand over to Sarah and Kim.
Thanks ever so much, Helen. We're going to have a colleague join us who has kindly agreed to join us today from the Vietnam Intellectual Society. And I'm going to ask Angie up in HUTECH if you can make sure that Dr. Yen has the ability to share some slides, which we're going to switch to in just a moment. We're going to talk in this section about building relationships, and we've put some examples of the kinds of networks that have been associated with this project here before we got started. So one of the things that I will do shortly is add in a link to the chat for those of you who've not yet had the opportunity to join our UK Vietnam Women in Academic Leadership LinkedIn network. That's something that we're really hoping that we all grow during the project, and that will continue after the project as a really nice way of staying connected. And obviously we're, with big thanks to the British Council, is one of their big roles is to connect people across the world in these endeavours. So these are some of the networks that already exist. I'm really pleased that we have some colleagues with us today who are going to share a little bit more about some of the networks that exist in the UK to connect people of Vietnamese heritage in the UK, but also connections between the UK and Vietnam. So I'm going to pass the floor over. I think, Dr. Yen, you're perhaps going to start us off, and Kim may join you as well in conversation. And we're really pleased to have you with us. Thank you very much.
Yeah, all right, everyone. Good morning and good afternoon. I'm not sure if you can hear me properly.
We can hear you beautifully, thank you.
All right, thank you so much then. Thanks, Sarah. Thanks, Kim, for inviting me. It's a little bit short notice, but obviously realizing how important it is to promote and also to make people aware of our organization. I was willing to come here and share a little bit of the introduction about our organization. Now, I haven't actually got a chance to know thoroughly about your setting today, about what you actually aiming to to give a message. But through listenings, briefly, I can realize that you'd like to promote this kind of network where we can really connect, right? So the Vietnamese, I guess that is also more academic and maybe more other association as well with the UK. So if I have a chance to share my slide, I think that's one of our vice member. Yeah, we would get some. Yeah, right. So we actually just put the slide together, and hopefully that you get a glimpse of who we are and what we're about. So my name is Yen Chuan. I'm Vietnamese origin, and I'm academic working at Edinburgh Business School and Harvard University in the UK. I came here from Copenhagen in Denmark. I was there for probably 10 years, also did my PhD and was working there as well. And before that, I was studying in the US, and before that in Thailand and different places. So I've been around really. And so at the moment, I'm the vice chair of the Vietnam Intellectual Society. And let me explain a little bit on this community. Now, we have quite different Vietnamese living in the UK. And obviously, we come from different walk of life, different type of career as well. So by 2020, the ambassador have this idea that maybe we should create some kind of community for the intellectual. And by intellectual, we don't really mean any rocket science. It just means that we are academic working at university in the UK, so then we can create a network. And firstly, we can actually internally help each other, okay, to support in terms of career development, in terms of joining some kind of funding or project or grant, so that we can do something for Vietnam. So from the heart, we really want to do something for our Vietnamese economic development, but it's also create a partnership so then we can actually bring back or create an impact as well for the UK society here. So this association, the society or the network was established with the initiative and support from the ambassador, and it also from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. And we established a little bit during the COVID time, to be honest. I mean, the initiative was before that, but it was kind of established kind of online. So during the time, it's pros and cons. Of course, we didn't really have a chance to meet each other directly, but at the same time, because of this virtual network, we are the opportunities to actually meet together. And at that point of time, obviously, we did need to have a little bit communities and society support as well. So so the association is comprised now about 200 academic, and we're all Vietnamese origin. And of course, there might be a lot more who we haven't got a chance to call in as a member, but we're actually doing a lot of effort to, you know, to call in to increase our member for our organization. We got a whole range of all kinds of discipline. And not necessarily we have to study in the UK, because I myself never ever studied in the UK before. For example, our chair, we also study in maybe in Australia, someone who studied in the US. But the UK university is very international. So whenever they have any job open, they attract talents everywhere. So we came here for the job equally like any international academics, you know, who qualify for the job. But at the same time, we can combine these kind of origins as a Vietnamese and create this kind of international network. So if you look at the slide here, you can actually see the disciplinary area can range from different, from STEM-based subjects to social science subjects as well. So we've got like medicine, health, natural science, social science is including ranging from business, finance to sociology, a kind of subject. And I think it's also in education, languages, and law, and all different ranges. And from the job title or position, we either professor, I think we have about 45 professor, and the other is 80s, or I think 60 or 80s associate professor, and the rest would be lecturers. And I think that not, so we have early career who can also be postdoc as well. And some of the membership policy now trying to also attract PhD students. So at the moment, we don't have PhD student as official member, but we have different category of them as well. So that is just to give them an overview of the association with two main kind of mission. One is to support internally, help each other develop career, create the community, you know, do something for Vietnam. And secondly is externally connect with other institution, either governments, institution, also other, you know, also universities. So we create at least kind of triple helix, you know, like with the government and industry as well. So from the activity, we have three main activity. One is I know that Tom is trying to show the slide, and I do speak out of what I think it should be. Yeah, but anyway, we got so we got the consultancy service here. It's based on the teaching education. So of course we academics, the main activity for us is it's really about the give consultation in terms of education, high education, how to manage the program, what type of subject we should offer. You know, we all working at university, so we are also director of program, we're also director of research, and you know all kind of position at university. So we give this consultancy, and through the British Council and support at the moment, we also have a program like a mentorship for PhD applicants, or mentorship for a young academic in Vietnam, where they can learn in terms of how to write proposal, how to write, how to apply for research funding, and all kind of academic skill. And we have a regular seminar and event where we actually share our kind of expertise in terms of what we are actually doing in terms of our research, but it's also the research process, how it works, the university governance, or even female leaderships, and so on as well. And we also have increased now the engagement with the Vietnamese organization, for example, government or Ministry of Education. Through BC, we also have a lot of contacts with the Vietnamese as well. And also in terms of UK, we also have a network with the Vietnam UK network, and also different organization here. So that is in terms of our activity. This is just certain milestone just to see how we have developed over the year. I have just recognized that your kind of main topic today is about network, and obviously you know what I just heard about the previous presentation about how you can create the platform and network physically, but it's not just a mechanism, but it's also create a community, because network coming from physically, which is network, go all the way to social capital. right? So network is a mechanism, but social capital is an outcome you actually got. And social capital is the value you get from the network you created, right? So then this Vietnam's intellectual network, first it is set up as a platform so that people can connect, but it's also create more of the social value or social capital where you can actually, okay, if I need some advice, if we want to develop my career, if I need an advice in terms of my research process, or how do I actually team up with the STEM academics colleagues so then I can actually apply for a written fund or ERSC funds or any other of the, core which actually can mobilize the interdiscipline forces. So that is how the social capital we actually can get from this network we created. And then we also got, we say aggregated forces, so then we can create a stronger team, so then we can actually help Vietnam government and Vietnam organization in terms of solving a society a problem or society issues or any kind of new policy. For example, if the government now are calling out for solving the green energy transition issue, or if they're calling out for how we can apply AI with the transparency and privacy to the organization or medium small enterprise in Vietnam, I just give an example from our kind of project, then we can actually put forces together and actually apply for the fund. And then we can utilize the expertise, which is advanced foreign knowledge and technology we can learn and possess from working as international academic in the international university, not just in the UK, but then combined with our local knowledge, which is very a strong advantage, because that's a hybrid that you can create this kind of unique, right, combination between being Vietnam, being a Vietnamese with local knowledge, but also with a network, with the access, with the willingness as well, a goodwill, which is very important, and with the combination with advanced knowledge. So with that combination, we could be much stronger in terms of create an impact and add the value, and that's because of the network. So the network is the mechanism to connect, right, to connect different actor and different kind of organization and connect the expertise at the end, and that create a huge social value as an outcome of the network. And that has been strengthen over the time, because one network will create, by the other network. So in the summer, for example, when we have time, we would come to Vietnam and launch different kind of a knowledge hub. So for example, in this summer, I just came back to Vietnam with the chair, Professor Huân, and we went to Da Nang, and that is when we launched the innovation hub, where we create this kind of space we can collaborate and support. So if you can show a bit on so here, for example, we have a dialogue with leadership from Vietnam as well. So now we actually create this reputation and credibility with the Vietnamese institution and Vietnamese government official as well. So when the Deputy Prime Minister came to Vietnam, and they were looking for expertise and support in terms of open the International Financial Center. And just the background information, right? Vietnam has now committed to become the rising area country, like the powerful country, where we wanted to commit that we want to rise up. And in this new area, we want to be more powerful, more developing in terms of technology. We want to catch up with digitalization. We want to be aware and bring in the sustainability with green energy transition. And those trips from the government actually going out looking for talent, and our network is the mechanism where they can actually use that one and access to our expertise and our advice. So when Deputy Prime Minister came to the UK, the Embassy of Vietnam has arranged this meeting, and we did actually provide a report and give our consultation based on our experience and our also knowledge about how to establish successful international financial center. So we actually advise them on that as well. So I want just to give an example so that you can see that how the network which we create as a platform with VIS is Vietnam Intellectual Society, has actually helped to mobilize that knowledge, right? So it's more like a knowledge management mechanism where you actually can mobilize knowledge flow so that it can actually go spill over to Vietnam. And that is the role of the network where we create now. So with that, we actually get a connection with with City of Da Nang and City Ho Chi Minh City, and that's when we had an idea that why don't we actually establish an innovation hub so we can actually create a knowledge flow between the two, so we can create to empower the innovation ideas so we can commercialize the innovations to create the value by supporting all the startup or the corporate innovation strategy of the firm in Vietnam. So innovation hub, we also create MOU with university. We went to University of Architecture University in Hanoi, and we also established this collaboration with in terms of education and support them in terms of higher education, right? So that is kind of our expertise as well. There's also training workshop and lab visits from the Vietnamese delegation. So they came from the Vietnamese university to the UK, and we helped them to show, we hosted them. I think in the picture, we also hosted them at UCL, where we show how the two things I remember, that is the university governance, how universities are organized, because this is also a big issue in Vietnam, that how do you actually turn from very state-centered university to more entrepreneurial university. That makes sense. Entrepreneurial university is when you actually can self-support financially as well through a higher education program, also research funding, and they need to also be much more financially independent, and that's very important in terms of making organizations in education sector be much more effective. There are also some of the delegation came also experience and visit some of the industry partner of our university. I remember when they went to Coventry University, we showed them also some of the industry and industry partner and show them how the knowledge exchange between university and industry. And you know the HUTECH model, where you have university, government, and the industry, and that connection between university and industry is also some great experience the Vietnamese universities can actually learn from, because as far as we understand, the Vietnamese university might be a little bit isolated in their ivory tower. I mean, in the past, they are changing a lot now, but in the past, they are more teaching rather than doing research. And part of the university here in the UK, we know that we have to keep very, very updated what's going on in the industry. So we would teach students about, you know, the upcoming trend, and we need to get updated. We create the collaborations. We can actually mobilize the expertise of scientific knowledge from the academic, but it's also, you know, the challenging of the industry and their experience to create more impact and solve the society problem. And that part, the Vietnamese delegation also come and learn from us as well. So if you look at the Vis Away Day, so every year we have two events. One is the AGM is the annual general meeting, where we also get together and we review what we have done over the year. We create, of course, the network and the bond, like social bonding. Right? So there are two types of concept in social value. One is social bonding, and the other is social bridging. Social bridging is when you're trying to connect two other organizations externally. Bonding is internally. So we do one bonding where we go as a Vis Away Day and the general annual meeting. We sit together, we share our experience. We even talk about how to get promoted from grade 7 to grade 8, and how to get promoted to professorship, what you need to know, like very, very cozy network. And the reason why it works, because we just talk about things we care about mutually as well, and usually on the July or September, if you look at the very the top corner on the left, that is the society network meeting in Ireland, because we have Ireland, and sometimes we create a bit of Ireland so the people feel a little bit more connected as well. So there are two types of networking here. One is when you create a little picture overview where you see, you know, this is how big the organization is, how big impact you would create if you actually collect with people. So we will put out the vision, you know, what our mission and what we can do. So that would be an AGM. But sometimes we create a smaller bonding activity where you got like a Scottish more focused group, or you got the Ireland, which is on the picture there, where the Irish-based academics we actually meet together, and then maybe they can share a little bit more the challenge which they feel closer and feel related to. So it is very important when you create network that people need to feel that they feel they can relate to them, right? Because if network is too big, then they might not feel, oh, maybe that's not my business. Maybe they try to help someone else. So in a way that we create this one, so if people feel like what's in for me, how do I feel it? Maybe it's not like what I can benefit, but what I can help others as well as a network. I'm trying to link here to what you said before. So at the corner left, if you don't move the slide, yeah, thank you so much. So that corner on the left, because I was the one who running this net zero conference. So sometimes we actually do not just about social bonding, we also create a topic where everyone's actually feel related in terms of their expertise. So for example, I'm a associate professor in innovation management. I'm looking at how to commercialize technology. So then someone else who actually looking at the technology of, you know, how to produce produce and create the hydrogens. Hydrogen, I'm not going into detail, but hydrogen is one of the a source of energy where we're actually looking at to replace the oil and gas or fossil base. So we have this net zero conference where we gather all the VIS members who are actually coming from material based kind of science, someone coming from chemistry based. I'm come from innovation management, looking at how to commercialize technology. So we have a policy government. So that network we actually combine between this member, but also government official from Vietnam. They join through online, and they give us, like we talked, they give us a homework. It means that they give us the challenge and assignment, and we're trying to bring in our expertise, and we brainstorm together how to actually solve that problem, how to solve the problem of you know, reaching the 2050 net zero target of being of having the net zero kind of goal. So my point here is I don't want to go into detail about the event, but it is a mechanism where you can actually create the participation from every partner based on one issue, that is how to help Vietnam to solve the society challenge. And you could see that how we can create this one. And not only that, we can combine our knowledge, but we actually create a social bond, because after that, we through discussion, and we actually create a VIS away day in the afternoon on that event. And we sit together and we share all our experience. And from there, I also have a project application with a colleague from Imperial College and another colleague from Newcastle. And from there, they also bring in their own colleague. They bring in their industry partner, and we bring in Vietnamese partner from Hanoi Technology University, Science and Technology University. So we appreciate a huge challenge this network bring us you know, together, and with this kind of aggregated forces, we can potentially create so much impact for Vietnam and the UK as well. So I don't know if I might go a little bit get carried away and go over the board. So so I'm very happy to, you know, to answer any question, but we just want to highlight that if these 2 points you want to make it, that you want to promote the networking, and there was one thing about the female, right? Which I got to told that I got to maybe say a little bit, a few words. So in this network, right, you can actually see myself as a female academic, and in our executive board, we also have executive member who are female as well. And one of the thing about female, of course, from the association itself, we try to promote the collaboration equally among everyone else. But we also have speakers who are female. We also have very established and well-achieved professor. For example, there was one from UCL and also one from different university. And sometimes when they come and talk, they also share about their journey as well. And one of the unique journey of academic, and we all know, and we are all women, you know, like attending this event, we really know that building a career, of course, we have to to do exactly like any male colleague have to do, but we also have a challenge of families. We also have a challenges of, you know, raising kids and all these things. So sometimes when we are in this away day, we also share about that. You know, how do you actually manage, how you actually, so last time we had an event about how to build a career as a woman academic. So we'll see how we juggle between, because sometimes we tend to, you know, we tend to show our academic kind of performance without saying that actually on the background, well, I'm a single mom, she's a single mom, maybe that someone have 2 children. They actually, no one actually credit for what is actually on the background. And I think that through this network, people not just see the example from, okay, she can make it, maybe I can make it, but not just about the competitive goal, but it's about sharing and, you know, show the empathy and inspiration, if that makes sense. But I just felt that this, and me as one of the vice chair, because we have 1 chair and 3 vice chair, and I'm one of them and the only one who represent for the female academic or a member, and I'm particular want to promote this kind of you know, like collegial support among the female academic as well, because I think that we do have a different challenge. Not saying that we shout out for credit and saying that, you know, victimize ourselves, never ever that way, but it's just that more empower each other. And I think empowering is the right word rather than supporting, because supporting is more like you are disadvantaged. We're not disadvantaged, we are power, right? We can do more than other people do. So we shouldn't see women as being disadvantaged, but we see women as, you know, additional kind of force, and we can only do together if we actually can join us together and create that aggregative force. But thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to talk, and I'm absolutely got this call very short notice. I only realized because I didn't check my email. So this morning I got up and I was like, okay, then I will come and have a chat and have opportunity to listen some of yours as well. And
Thank you so much. It's really kind of you to come and share your story, and we'll make sure that people can see those resources and connect with the Intellectual Society. Kim is going to share a little bit of her experience of her own networking for a few minutes, and then we'll wrap up by thinking about those relationships and cultural differences. So Kim, shall I pass over to you for a few moments?
Yes. Hi. Okay, thank you so much, Ian, for the very insightful and engaging presentations. And I think that, you know, on the Vietnamese Intellectual Society, so you've given us not only a clear picture of the society, but also a real sense of the energy, talent, and commitment within the Vietnamese academic and professional communities. So just want to follow on that. I like to give, you know, the audience here just like an overview of organizations and societies that provide valuable networking and funding opportunities for international researchers. So these are based in the UK as well as some founded by Vietnamese academics with an international reach. So these organizations play an important role in building partnership between UK institutions and international researchers, where that's supporting UK academic to connect overseas or enabling international researchers to come to the UK to carry out research projects. So some of these networks provide formal funding schemes, such as research grant, travel award, or fellowships. And while others focus more on professional networking, mentorships, and collaborative project development. So the aim here is just to give you a sense of the landscape, the types of opportunities that exist, and how they can support your work, and where to start looking if you want to build international collaborations. So I can share on the screen now some of these organizations that you may want to look up, you know, just by Google, you know. Hold on a second, let me share on the screen. Can you see it?
We can. Kim might want to pop it into presentation and then we can see it perfectly.
Yeah. All right. Okay. All right. So, so I
Kim,
just
we've got it in. If you just want to change the display settings, we can see the 2 slides at once.
Okay, I'm just trying to move it here. Sorry.
It's okay. just so that it's a little easier for colleagues to read?
Let me see, because I got two screen on here, so that's
I
why.
know, it's the technology, isn't it? So you might want the duplicate slideshow. That will help you, I think. Perfect.
Okay,
Thank you.
done. Yeah, so I just wanted to, to gather some information about different organisations based in the UK that offering, a funding scheme or fellowships, or maybe just like opportunity for you to reach out for advice, information, and networking. So if you have a look on the screen, you can see that, that's, for example, at the top of the screen is the Newton International Fellowships. So this is a prestigious postdoctoral program, run, joint operated by Royal Society. You may have heard about Royal Society and British Academy and Royal Academy of Engineering. So this is really relevant for natural scientists. So it supports non-UK nationals to conduct research in the UK for up to 3 years and generate funding for research expense. So what does it mean? That you can go into their website and look for opportunity and things that open up, every year. And there wouldn't be deadlines. I don't remember exactly what the deadline is for the next year, but keep looking on that. And you can reach out for, for example, contact, people, individuals who have applied for those scheme in order to see how you can be successful in your application. So I think the VIS member, some of them have applied for, have gone, that got their postdoctoral graduate from this program as well. So you can reach out to them. Another thing that you can have a look, but I can just like pick up some examples that may be useful and relevant. For example, another thing is the Global Talent Fund. They provide 54 million, pound program, and it's funding 12 different UK university and institutes. And they will cover your visa relocation costs to help attract leading international researchers in fields like sciences and AI. So that's just like some example about these funding scheme and fellowships. And I think that something, for example, the UK, UK and UKRI Global Innovation Support, they also offer networking and funding advice. You look at the bottom left of the screen. So I've got also the link here for you to click on, so you can go straight into their website and find out further information about how you can get information and advice from them, and in terms of also for your international research partnerships and also business-led science collaboration as well. So that's just some of the things that I like to share with you. Of course, this one that Ian already introduced about Vietnamese Intellectual Society in the UK. There are a couple of two other societies that you can look up as well. The first thing is the Vietnam Innovation Network. So I think this is kind of, it originates from Vietnam first, and under the Ministry of Planning Investment, and but now it connected, globally in order to attract talents and scientists all over the world coming back into Vietnam to invest, expertise and knowledge, and also financial as well. Another organization that you might want to look at as well is a global organization of Vietnamese scientists and experts. This is based in France, I believe. And this is Vietnamese scientists and experts living worldwide to contribute to Vietnam development through knowledge, sharing, strategic advice, and innovation. And again, if you want, more information, please go into their website. You just need to Google it, and it's going to come up on the screen for you. So that's something that you might be interested as well. So my last slide is just some kind of advice that if you want to reach out to institution and individual for networking, please do so. And in the UK, for example, for individual, you may want to look up on LinkedIn, and type in, the keyword to look for professor or lecturer of Vietnamese heritage, and they often act as mentor and connectors. In Vietnamese heritage, professor, lecturer in the UK, they're really keen to, like Ian has said earlier, about keen to help and support Vietnamese community in Vietnam. you also want to look at, you know, the academic supervisor and collaborator, you know, and when you're applying for the UK research provision or funding. So for example, when I applied for my PhD degree, I contacted my supervisor directly, just look up on the, you know, on the university website to find who are relevant to my topic, and I contacted them directly. And of course, UK-based Vietnamese researcher with active social media and research profile, again, look up on LinkedIn, ResearchGate. So you might have not heard about the ResearchGate yet. So this is the website where it provides the name of the researchers and also the research and articles that they have produced. And that will provide you some kind of idea about, you know, who doing what in the UK. And you can contact, and the UK researchers, they are very open, you know, in terms, if you contact them, they're happy to share their knowledge, their articles, and they may give you some advice as well. And also UK-based diaspora leaders or community organizers, like one of them like this, or, you know, some other organization as well. So also you may want to look at the website of the Royal Society. This is for natural sciences, or British Academy. This is for humanities and social sciences, and also Academy of Medical Science, if someone, you know, interested in medical science. So yeah, so that's something that I have gathered and to share with you, and hopefully that you find it helpful. Okay, so that's it for me.
Kim, thank you so much, and to Yen, thank you so much for sharing your stories with us. I think one of the things that is really important to take from the work that we've been talking about here is actually how people have found the networks that they're looking for, but also when they don't have those networks, to establish them themselves. I think one of the things that is most impressive about the Vietnamese Intellectual Society is how much it's achieved in a really short amount of time, just a few years. And we wanted to kind of share that with you, to say that sometimes the networks that you might be interested in are there, but sometimes they may not be, and you might need to think about creating them yourselves. The picture that's on the screen here is taken from our university's website. And one of the things that we have often found is that people with shared characteristics want to network with people who have similarities in their lives to them. So we've seen professional networks that are connected with nationality, and there are professional networks associated with disciplines as well. For example, we have a range of networks in the UK, for example, like the Women in Engineering Society, which is really big. But what we've also found is that there are groups that want to come together, and these are all groups showing on the screen here, that groups of staff at our university came together and decided to establish. So just a few enthusiastic people coming together, sometimes with senior sponsorship, but not always. Sometimes that senior sponsorship is really important in giving credibility and authority to those networks, but sometimes they're very collaborative and very community-based. So I think one of the things that we would suggest to you is that if the networks that you need are not out there for you to find, then maybe it's about time that you set one up for yourself. We did say that we would just briefly touch on building relationships at different levels. And we think it's really important at whatever stage of your career you are at, to think about the relationships that you might want to form, whether that's asking your line manager to connect you with their peers so that you're networking with people who are perhaps a stage ahead in their career, that then might lead to the opportunity to spend some time shadowing or spending a day to observe people's practice. Some really low level, low resource activity, but which can be hugely impactful. We've talked a lot already today and in our other sessions about connecting with external leaders and asking those connections to make introductions for you, and how important and impactful that can be. And whether you're thinking about attending events in person or online, there are lots of different ways in which that you can connect with people at different levels. We just wanted to share a couple of final reflections before really opening up for any questions or discussion, and think about some of the cultural considerations when they're in networking. It was interesting in the response to the mentee questions earlier that somebody made the contribution talking about feeling introverted. And I think it's really easy when you read the literature and the advice on networking to see lots of things which lean into what we would call extroverted behavior. So on the left-hand side here, we've tried to capture some ideas for those of you who might feel or associate yourself with being introverted, where your strengths are in your listening skills, your desire to create thoughtful conversations through one-to-one connections, as opposed to extroverts who might be the people who are much more high energy, much more comfortable in those social settings that we talked about earlier, things like conferencing, network sessions, and find it seemingly quick and easy to make connections and build rapport with people. So just some simple advice here that if perhaps you're more introverted, you might want to not pressurize yourself to have a huge network, but to invest in quality relationships rather than quantity. And to think about what you might say to somebody or ask questions in advance so that if you're nervous at the time, you know what you were going to say before you started. I know we've talked a lot about LinkedIn, but it is useful from the point of view that it's asynchronous. You can draft a message, rewrite it, look at it again, and then send it. So you can be perfectly comfortable before that communication goes to somebody rather than being reliant on a spontaneous conversation. And for in-person events, you might want to think about starting with things which are smaller and more focused, where you can connect with people afterwards. Whereas a lot of the leadership literature will talk a lot about those extroverted behaviors, people who are happy to go to mixers and networking sessions at big conferences, to use social media actively and confidently, to even participate, to join webinars such as Dr. Yen has done today, to have spontaneous conversations and to participate very actively. One of these sets of advice is not better than the other. It's really important that you find something that works for you. And finally from us, we wanted to share a little bit of how our thinking on leadership has maybe slightly had a minor adjustment since our time with you in Vietnam. We were really struck by talking to you about how the values, collectivism, and that respect for hierarchy really do inform your approach to your own professional development and to thinking about leadership more generally. And it was really important for us to say, as Helen was modelling earlier, that the networking that we're doing with you on that project is as much learning for us as it is for anyone who is participating. So it's been really good for us to think about hierarchy and authority, because that's often seen differently in the UK to what we've seen with working with colleagues on this project in Vietnam, where there's much more emphasis on building respectful relationships rather than it seemingly challenging or being about moving on. And that's been really useful for us, something for everybody to reflect on if you want to work internationally, the importance of taking some time to look at what these concepts mean in the country of the people who you want to network with. It's also been really interesting to listen and talk with you about this concept of group harmony and collectivism, where it feels that that is more important than the individual assertiveness. So it's really challenged my thinking about how networking can benefit my team or my organisation, and not just or so much about my own professional development. And it's been really good to hear about how important and how central the values of trust and mutual respect are. And so that formulates part of that conversation when you're networking, and that it's not seen as transactional, but it is seen as relationship building. So that's been a really interesting part of the conversation, and perhaps has impacted on how we're reflecting on our professional networks, which we thought might be a useful place to finish up today. We do have some time if people have questions and want to ask or make any comments, either using the chat function or to come on screen and speak to us. I'm perfectly happy to stay on the call for a little while longer if anyone would like that. I think Helen is going to say her farewells though.
So yes, I'm really sorry. I have to go to a training workshop, which I'm going to right now. So I'm going to leave you, but I'm hoping that Sarah, Kim, and perhaps even Dr. Yen might be able to stay and pick up any questions if they come up. But thank you so much for joining us today. It's been a real pleasure, and thank you for sharing and engaging with the Mentimeter as well. It was really good to hear your thoughts about networking.
Thanks, Helen. So now is the time for any of our participants. If you would like to ask a question, please feel free to open the reactions panel and use the raise hand. Or if you would like to pose a question into the chat, we're more than happy to pick those up from there as well. So we'll give it a moment and let anyone who might like to say something to raise their hand or to write into the chat. Whilst you're thinking of your questions, I am just going to post the link again to the LinkedIn network, which is the one that we have set up associated with this project, and that we would be really keen to have folks join, which is the UK Vietnam Women in Academic Leadership Network. I think one of the stories that I would have told earlier, but I will say again here now, is please don't underestimate how small networking can be hugely impactful. So here in the UK, we've talked a little bit, Helen and I have talked a little bit today about supporting people to get their academic promotions to associate professors and professors. And there's a lot of work that goes on in the UK in what we call the intersectional space. So where we're looking at gender and race. So there is a big project in the UK for, it's a women's higher education network that's been working for a long time on gender equality. But in 2018, looked at the data associated with the number of women who are of Black heritage, so mainly Black African heritage or Black Caribbean heritage, who hold professorships in the UK in comparison to white men who hold professorships in the UK. And the figures are frightening. So back in 2018, which was just 8 years ago, there were 12,500 white male professors in the UK and 25 Black women. Now, this organisation, this network, very community-based, has been working very hard to create mentoring, coaching, support for people in that space. And as of this summer, we now have 82 Black female professors in the UK. Still nowhere near the figures for the white men, but a substantial, a threefold increase on where we were just a small number of years ago. So please don't ever doubt that setting up your professional network is not impactful. It's been really great this summer to read the stories of people who've had their academic promotions and who are acknowledging the support that they've had from their informal mentors and from their professional networks. So I just wanted to share that story because I'm a big believer in the fact that small actions might feel as though they're not going to have big results, but actually they can really change individuals' lives. So don't overlook those really small ways to connect and network with people. So whilst I've been telling that story, I've been taking a look. There's been no questions in the chat and no raised hands. So I think I'm going to invite colleagues to enjoy your evening for those of you in Vietnam, and for Kim and Yen and I, we will start our work days here in the UK properly. Dr. Yen, thank you so much for finding the time to join us this morning. Kim, thank you very much for initiating that contact, but also for sharing your very valuable advice on the networks that are available for people to connect with here in the UK. As always, the session has been recorded, and colleagues at HUTECH will make sure that that is available, and that there is a small, I think, feedback or survey afterwards that's really important for us to ask colleagues to take a moment or two to complete, so that we can gather the necessary evaluation information for the British Council that we would be expecting. Angie, from HUTECH's point of view, is there anything that you'd like to say at the end of the session, or are we good to wrap up?
Thank you everyone for joining the meeting. So I hope to see everyone on our next meeting on September.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. So our next meeting, our next two meetings, we're going to be thinking a little bit more about research and managing research alongside your careers. And so we really hope that some of you can join us for that. We will be setting up those sessions for everyone, from people who are quite new to research, but also more experienced researchers. So whatever your background, whatever your previous experience, please don't hesitate to come along and join us. But otherwise, have a lovely evening, everybody, and we'll see you at the next session. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much for your
Thanks for
sharing.
inviting me. Bye bye. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Goodbye.